Hello you guys, my name is Mr. Scotty Boy. What's up? Today, I'm going to be playing a little bit of Skyrim, but that's not my main purpose. I'm going to be reading something called a creepypasta. Most of you probably know what this is. Well, today, I'm going to be reading one called Akarui Mirai. And just to let you know, after this, I'm going to start a Skyrim walkthrough, because the Bioshock thing, I don't know. I just thought I'd start one of these. This is a popular series. Okay, so, to start us off. The RPG Maker 15 is a pretty... is a pretty expensive download, yet still there is so much variety that you can create almost any RPG you so desire. There was once a boy named Alex, who had spent about 2 hours every day for about 2 weeks developing his RPG. It was a fairly large one, as well as he had planned it to be filled with a several-act story, as well as side quests and other bonus materials. This RPG also featured 10 storyline bosses that were named and based on Alex and his friends. Just a little something to get his friends more involved in having a good time with it.
What should we do?
One day, however,
it's not on the list.
He loaded up the map
the list.
to continue in its creation, only to find it completely done. Everything that he wanted to put into the map was already placed. Monsters, locations, bosses, etc., etc. Confused and a tad curious, he decided to beta test the game to see how it worked. Putting on his headphones, he hit the play button. To his surprise, it worked flawlessly. Everything moved, functioned, and acted exactly how he had imagined it would. Even the bosses who mimicked his friends acted very much like his friends. This, however, confused and began to disturb him a little bit. Excuse me. He hadn't started putting in the dialogue for the game. He and his friends were going to work together to come up with their own dialogue, yet here he was, playing the finished product with all the people who were supposed to be his friends acting exactly how they do, and even looking like they did. Something that had gotten his attention, though, was the fact that they continuously mentioned a person named Mirai. They kept saying how they were sorry for what happened. They wouldn't play, after they had been defeated. Who was Mirai? He didn't know, but he assumed it would be explained as he played the game. For some odd reason, guilt began to build up inside him, but he wasn't quite sure why. As he kept playing, he found one thing out of place. It was a town that had never planned to have. A town that went by the same name as the town he and his friends lived in. He started to get a little suspicious, and he explored the area. Despite the maker's limitations, due to its being very fantasy-based, the town did look very similar to his hometown. This was namely in the way that homes were in the area of the town where homes were in his hometown, and stores were in the town where stores were arranged in his hometown. So he looked around at the town, talking to the carefree and unsanity denizens of the town itself. He didn't find anything terribly unusual, save on character, who mentioned a boy named Raymond. Raymond was a friend of Alex's, who was going to be the second-to-last boss in the main storyline. Apparently, Raymond had gone insane after something happening with a girl named Mirai. That line sparked recognition within Alex. Raymond had also been a crazy kid who many would probably have considered insane. They were indeed going to incorporate that into the game itself, but they didn't plan for any major explanation. Yet now, it had something to do with this Mirai, who was now revealed to be a girl. Had something happened to her? Guilt once again filled his stomach for an unknown reason, and again he couldn't figure out why. Still, he pressed on, exploring the town, eventually coming to what looked like a cemetery. The only part of this town that wasn't similar to Alex's own. In the cemetery was a crypt, one that was open. He entered the crypt and noticed it was a lot larger on the inside than on the outside. But he simply shrugged it off. It was a custom-made RPG, and anything could happen. As he continued down a long hallway, he swore he saw the sprite of a little girl with black hair, red eyes, and sort of a dark, scared face briefly appear up ahead. But it was gone so fast, the only reason he noticed it was due to an afterimage. Curious, he continued on, only to suddenly be stopped for no reason. That's when the text box showed up, and read these words. "Why couldn't you play with me?" This disturbed him a bit, yet he continued walking. The character stopped again, and another line of text came up. "Why didn't you save me?" Alex swallowed, yet he continued walking. Again, the character stopped. Another line. "The burning! I can't breathe!" Slowly, sweat began to run down his face, yet he somehow had the nerve to keep walking. One last time, the character stopped, and one last line came up. "Why did you leave me to die, Alex?" The instant that line came up, a pained scream of a girl rang through his headphones. Startled and scared out of his wits, he instantly threw them off of his ears. The scream stopped, but he looked back at the screen. It was black. Slowly, it faded, however. It faded back. He was now outside the crypt. His heart was pounding. He decided to go around town and ask people about the girl Mirai, assuming the text had changed. Surprisingly, it did. The people one by one explained the story of Mirai. Apparently, Mirai was a friendly young girl who had hung out with Alex's characters and the characters of his friends many years ago. Before they had become part of the organization the game's plot was based around. One day, Alex and his friends refused to play with her. It had something to do with her breaking a promise and getting them all in trouble. Saddened, especially after apologizing, she ran back inside her home. A few seconds later, a scream was heard, and the entire village rushed to see what it was. Apparently, in her upset state, Mirai had tripped and fallen face first into the lit fireplace. The village medic checked her, yet quickly gasped and ran out the door, but not before ordering them to wait until his return. After he left, they assumed her dead, and, not wanting to wait until the corpse started smelling, Alex and his friends offered to bury her within the old crypt, wishing to bury her peacefully to cleanse their guilt. Her parents agreed, and they placed her in a stone casket inside the crypt. The medic soon returned with a healer and asked where Mirai's body was. They had told her they didn't wish for the body to start smelling, so they buried her in the crypt. Horrified, the medic and healer quickly rushed into the crypt. The others followed, wondering what was going on. They opened the casket, only to find the decayed body of Mirai. Only, it was not in the position Alex's characters and his friends had left her in. The position looked like she was struggling to lift the lid, like she was trying to get out. A terrible sense of horror drifted over them as the realization sunk in. Alex, reading the story, felt a horrible wave of horror and guilt fill him. But why guilt? It was only his character who did this, right? Trying to get the horrifying story out of his mind, he quickly continued the game. His friends were still muttering their apologies to Mirai for their actions upon their defeat. Every time he read their lines, he felt more and more guilt for his character's story. Finally, he made it to the final boss himself. However, something was different. Throughout this fight, every time he took down a quarter of his character's health, a text box would appear saying, "Don't hide from the truth." After Alex had defeated his character, the in-game Alex started his dying speech. "Don't hide from the truth, the guilt. You just don't want to remember, do you? Stop hiding. Face reality. Repent. Repent!" Suddenly, the game faded to black, and the start screen came up again with the new game and load options dimmed, meaning they couldn't be used. Alex replayed the final speech over and over again in his mind. Why did he feel so much guilt for the actions of his in-game character? Why did the name Mirai suddenly start sounding familiar? Yes, the more Alex thought about it, the more that name sounded familiar. Alex decided to do some research, if only to stifle his curiosity. He found an old news report talking about a girl named Akarui Mirai. a Japanese girl who immigrated from Japan to the United States, and who had died after suffering severe burns after falling into a fireplace. He quickly read the story. To his stunned horror, it sounded exactly the same as the one in-game. Apparently, she had tripped while in an upset state after her friends insulted her due to getting them in trouble. Slowly, memories started coming back to him. Memories of someone who he had struggled for so long to forget. Memories of a girl named Akarui Mirai. Repent. Repent! Those words kept echoing in his mind. So the next day he asked his parents if they could take him to the cemetery. Confused, they asked why, to which he replied, I want to see Mirai. Their eyes widened in recognition and nodded seriously and sadly. After getting in formal dress and heading to the cemetery, he walked up, alone, to a single gravestone. Akarui Mirai, January 1st, 1995, to April 4th, 2004. Loving daughter and friend, we shall miss you greatly. I thought that said gently. A cold sense of dread filled him. He fell to his knees as he began to sob. Finally, after a few minutes, he spoke. I'm so sorry, Mirai. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for what I said. Please, if you can hear me, forgive this sorry excuse for a friend. He then thought back to the game and how Mirai, in-game, had been found in the casket. His eyes widened in horrible realization. No! Oh dear God! We buried you! We buried you alive! Oh God! Mirai! Sweet Jesus, Mirai! Alex bent his head down in shame and horror. The pain was ever growing, never ceasing. Mirai, if you can hear me, please never allow me to forget you again. Slowly, Alex got up and bid his farewells to his old friend. But in turning around, he saw a young girl standing in front of him, with black hair, red eyes, and a burnt and scarred face. Exactly like the girl in the crypt in-game. Well, that was Akarui Mirai. I don't know. I thought it was a good one. Wasn't too many, God, why can't I think of the word? I don't know. I was gonna say something, but I forgot the word. Cliches. There weren't too many cliches. Little after note, I went on Google Translate and to see if it had any meaning. Ironically enough, the name Akarui Mirai in Japanese means bright future. Well, I think that's about it for today. You guys, I like you. What? What? Wrong thing. Anyways, you guys, I've gotta go. I think you guys had fun. I'm just gonna let the rest of this clip roll, because I thought that story would take a bit longer. So if you want, just watch the rest of this clip. And, see you next time with a little bit more, Skyrim.